The movie's premise is set in a dystopian society about 200 years in the future. The Earth is in a dilapidated state with high pollution levels and limited resources. The majority of the water sources are contaminated, food is a rare commodity, and the air's oxygen levels are incredibly low. Many years ago, a group of humans were sent to the moon, alongside an artificial intelligence system called IO, to create a more livable society and develop useful technology to help save the Earth. After 3 generations, the humans on the moon successfully established a grandiose society, inhabitable by humans and full of resources, named Moonhaven. They started living a good life, while the people on Earth still suffered from the planet's terrible conditions. On a cold night in Moonhaven, a girl named Chill steals and runs away with a peculiar device. However, she is soon caught and killed by her lover, Strago, who then retrieves it from her. The following morning, a pair of patrolling police officers named Arlo and Paul find the body of a murdered woman in an open field. Using an advanced tracking gadget, they identify her as Chill Span, the woman from earlier. They are shocked by the incident, as this is the first murder that has ever happened on Moonhaven. Soon, the duo heads out to search for the killer. This doesn't take long though, as they arrest and imprison Strago shortly after. However, when the officers visit his cell for questioning, he attacks one of them and immediately makes a run for it. Next, we are introduced to the protagonist, Bella Sway, an experienced pilot who has been tasked to transport Indira Mare, the envoy of IO, and a high-ranking official on Earth, alongside her bodyguard Tom, to the moon for an executive visit. Before they commence their journey, Tom engages Bella in a little chat, breaking the ice as the two get friendly. Soon, Indira arrives, and the trio embark on their journey to the moon. On the ship, Bella receives a call from JT, a friend of hers on Earth, who asks her to smuggle a psychedelic drug named Singer from the moon back to the Earth. At first, she is skeptical, but when JT insists, she agrees. In the next scene, the aircraft finally lands on the moon after a long trip. Bella remains on the aircraft while Indira, accompanied by Tom, heads out for a meeting with the council chair, Maita, the ruler of the moon's human society. About an hour later, Bella spots a bird, which nosedives into a surrounding lake, dropping off a package. She retrieves the package and takes it inside the spaceship. On opening it, she finds the Singer, which she was tasked to smuggle to Earth. Just as she puts the package in a hidden drawer, Bella sees 2 policemen knocking on the aircraft's doors. Curious to find out what they want, she opens it, letting them in. The officers turn out to be the same ones that found Chill's body, and they have come to bring her in for questioning. Bella is confused as to why she's being asked to come along with them, but she obliges nonetheless. On getting to their quaint precinct, she learns that her sister, Chill, was murdered the day before. However, the news doesn't faze Bella, as she didn't even know of her sister's existence, because her mother left for the moon right after Bella's birth. In the following scene, Bella is taken by Paul to see Chill's adoptive sister, Acis. Acis had witnessed her sister's murder and requested to see Bella to pass a message to her. On her arrival, Acis tells her about her mother and sister before informing Paul that there was a second witness besides her at the crime scene. On hearing this, Paul and Bella revisit the scene to look for clues. There, they spot a figure watching them from the woods. The duo swiftly runs after the stalker. Soon, they reach a wall demarcating the livable human-conducive area from the rest of the moon. Despite Paul's warnings, Bella goes past it, crawling through a nearby hole in pursuit of the stalker. However, when she gets outside, she instantly feels lightheaded and doesn't go far before collapsing due to the lack of oxygen in the area. When she wakes up, she finds herself in an unfamiliar house. On investigating, she finds Paul and his family having lunch at the dinner table and proceeds to join them. In the process, she learns a bit about their culture on the moon, such as their strange cuisines, as well as the various dances they offer to bereaved families. When it's her turn, she tells them about Earth and how the people are still living there in dilapidated conditions. Elsewhere, Indira is in a meeting with Maita, the council chair. Indira informs her that IO's algorithm has proposed a change of Moonhaven's council authority, despite there being 2 years left in the current administration's tenure. Maita expresses her displeasure on hearing the news, citing that she has done nothing to deserve the termination of her rule. Indira agrees, but reminds Maita that IO is capable of making accurate predictions of the future and advises the councilwoman to quit before Earth's top officials take action. In the following scene, Bella, who has returned to the aircraft, sees a system intruder warning on her monitor. When she goes to investigate the source of the alert, she finds Strego lurking in a corner and quickly tases him. However, before she can take definitive action, she is interrupted by Tom, who calls for her from the other end of the aircraft. Bella goes to meet him, and there, Tom initiates a random but wholesome conversation with her. A few minutes later, Strego also enters the room and tells Tom that his project is done, causing Tom's countenance to immediately change. He shoots Strego, instantly killing him, and soon after attacks Bella. The two begin fighting, and ultimately Tom gets the upper hand. However, in a desperate attempt, Bella reaches for the singer and manages to inject him with it, thus stunning and disarming him. Tom's about to trip balls. In the next scene, a frightened Bella walks out of the aircraft and runs into Paul. Seeing Bella in a frightened state, Paul sedates her, causing the former to collapse on him. When she wakes up, she finds herself in a tent and instantly panics, trying to find an exit. She pushes against one of its sides and falls through, landing in a body of water. It turns out that the tent is isolated in a mighty sea. Meanwhile, Indira, who has long returned to the spaceship, holds a virtual meeting with the Earth's Council. She informs them of the recent happenings on the moon, including the murders of Strego and Chill, as well as the attack on Tom. The Council is furious at the turn of events and speculates that Strego was the one who attacked Tom, which makes them fearful that the Mooners are turning against them. The fear is especially aggravated, as the first batch of Mooners is scheduled to return to Earth to begin its restoration process in less than a couple weeks. Indira tries her best to alleviate their fears, assuring them that she is in control of the situation, but the Council is still skeptical. Later that day, Paul takes a canoe to visit Bella. When he enters the tent, she attacks him, thinking he's there to harm her. However, he explains that he only brought her there to keep her safe. Hearing this, Bella finally calms down. Unsure of what happened last night, Paul asks her about Tom and Strego. Surprisingly, Bella lies to him, as she is scared to have him discover that she was the one smuggling Singer. She tells him that Strego was the one who injected Tom with the drug. Paul senses that something is amiss, but decides to believe her story anyway. Before he leaves, he informs her that Tom is still alive and is recuperating back at the ship thanks to Io. In the meantime, Indira pays a visit to Maita's home. There, she firmly asks her to relinquish her position and pass Io's key to the next council chair. However, Maita remains adamant about staying in power and rejects her request. Elsewhere, we see that Bella has made her way to another tent, several meters away from the first. She steals a canoe nearby and paddles for over an hour before finally reaching the shore. In a bid to return to her spaceship, she runs around the forest, but soon gets lost and captured by the Mooners. Following this, she is isolated at the city's station in a sleep-like state. Coincidentally, Paul, who is also at the station, uses their advanced technology to search her mind and watches some of her life experiences, specifically the war times in which she served in the military as a pilot. However, since he is not used to such acts of violence, he isn't able to keep watching and turns the feed off. Then, he goes through her call records and finds her conversation with JT, thus confirming that she is a smuggler. Immediately, he wakes her from the dreamlike state and brings her in for thorough questioning. Confronted with the damning evidence, Bella comes clean on the smuggling, but maintains that she did not attack Tom with the Singer. Upon hearing her confession, Paul takes her to the Moon Council for a trial to determine her fate. During the trial, one council member advocates that they put her back to sleep state, while another proposes they send her back to Earth, where she belongs. However, before they finalize on one of the options, Paul steps forward and tells the council about what he saw in her memories. He declares her a broken soul, reminding them that the role of Mooners is to save Earth souls like her. With this, he suggests that the council let her stay under his supervision instead. The council is moved by his words and eventually sets Bella free. After the trial, Paul, now responsible for Bella, takes her to his house. There, she finally reveals everything and admits that she was the one who injected Tom with the Singer, but clarifies that it was purely in self-defense. Paul appreciates her honesty, even though it took 3 tries to get there, and hands her a bag containing a wooden box, which belonged to her sister, Chill. Inside, she finds a collection of her mother's things, including a strange-looking projection device. When they switch it on, they find a pre-recorded message from Chill, warning them that the Mooners were never going to save the Earth. She also mentions that the bridge, which is the transport of the Mooners to the Earth, is a trap. The message leaves the duo in awe as they stare at the projection in disbelief. The following morning, Paul visits his partner Arlo in his house to tell him about Chill's ominous warning from the recording. Paul panics at the severity of the issue, but Arlo comforts and reassures him that they will eventually discover the truth. When Paul leaves the house, he finds a girl dressed in officer's clothing waiting for him outside. She introduces herself as Blue, his assigned apprentice, and silently tails him as he walks away. Meanwhile, Bella goes to meet Indira to inform her that Tom is a double agent who is in cahoots with some Mooner rebels trying to sabotage the bridge. She recounts what happened on the night of the attack, explaining that Tom tried to kill her because she witnessed Strago speaking to him. However, Indira does not believe her, declaring that Tom would never betray her. Right then, we get a flashback to Indira's past at an IO training facility. There, a teenage Indira meets another student named Basta. The two girls instantly hit it off and become best friends. Their stay at the facility is generally peaceful and quiet. However, one day, the facility is attacked by a group of terrorists. Indira and Basta enter a hidden room to hide from the armed men, but are quickly discovered by one of them. Much to Indira's surprise, Basta joins them and leaves, revealing that she is one of the terrorists. Back to the present, Bella returns to her ship and retrieves the package which the singer was contained in. She returns and shows it to Paul, who analyzes the object but can't seem to make much of it, as it has no distinct markings or symbols. However, when she mentions that a bird delivered it, he immediately goes wide-eyed, realizing the source. Soon, he takes her to a craft shop, where Mooners construct robotic delivery birds. On entering the shop, Bella spots a pelican-shaped design identical to the one that delivered the singer, and stares at its craftsman suspiciously. Never trust someone who has a thing for pelicans. Just then, the man sprints out of the shop and into a nearby forest, while Bella quickly chases him in hot pursuit, with Paul trailing behind. Luckily, after a bit of back and forth, they finally capture the runaway craftsman, Cyril, and bring him in for questioning. At the precinct, they ask who he's working with, but Cyril is uncooperative and denies being involved. In a bid to bait him, Bella lies that Tom has woken up and would eventually spill all the secrets of the Mooner rebels. However, Cyril remains silent and is eventually allowed to leave the precinct when they realize that he won't budge. As he leaves, Paul asks Blue to spy on him, just in case he does anything suspicious. Later that day, Paul and Bella engage in a little argument over the intentions of the Mooners. Bella is certain that some Mooners are trying to sabotage the bridge with the help of Tom, as they want to keep the paradise they established away from Earth. But Paul, who blindly trusts his people, does not see reason and swears that the Mooner would never do that. In the following scene, Maita and Indira enter the IO authorization chamber. The chamber permits access to foreign aircraft to enter the Moonhaven and requires authorization from both leaders. Without their unanimous consent, no ship can land in the haven. Maita and Indira initiate the authorization process in anticipation of the arrival of a fleet of aircraft, which are to convoy the first batch of Mooners to the Earth. However, at the last authorization stage, Maita has a change of heart and withdraws her consent, thus canceling the endorsement as she storms out of the chamber, giving Indira no explanation. Confused, Indira reports the matter to the Earth Council, who become even more anxious over the situation as patience is running thin on Earth, with humans expecting the Mooners to arrive soon to recuperate the planet. In the following scene, Bella, Paul, and his daughter, Elna, are walking through the woods when Paul receives a nearby distress signal from Blue. They quickly trace the signal and find her lying amongst some shrubs in the forest. She informs them that Cyril caught her stalking him in the woods and then tried to kill her. However, she fought back and luckily managed to knock him out. The group helps her up, and after this, they trace Cyril's footsteps to a nearby cave. In it, they discover that some Mooners have removed their implants, which are small pebble-like trackers that help IO monitor each individual's movements and activities, hence making them untraceable. The group brainstorms why they would do this, and soon deduces that Cyril must have told them about Tom's recovery. Therefore, they realize that the Mooners are planning to attack Tom. Wasting no time, Bella and Paul quickly head to Indira's house, accompanied by a squad of officers to protect Tom, who is still in a coma. Early the next morning, a masked Mooner attacks a guarding officer. The episode ends as the rest of the group slowly encircles the house, preparing for an ambush. To see what happens next, watch the second part in Series Recapped.